I've been away for far too long, but now I'm on my way back home. I hear the west winds calling.
Hello everyone, welcome out on another stomp. I'm on the Isle of Wight, and believe it or not that long ago, around about sort of mid-1800s, I'd have been in the sea now. This is now Brading Marshes, but once upon a time it was Brading Harbour. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump on in a second to what was the Bembridge branch of the Isle of Wight Railways, which was built at the time they were reclaiming all of this land. Now the branch line went from Brading, which was already an active station on the Isle of Wight Railway and still is now in 2024, and I'm going to follow the old track bed all the way out to a little village called Bembridge, which is an absolutely stunning little place, famous for fishing and yachting and money. Okay, so I'm going to walk up onto the track bed now, or what was the track bed. I can actually hear a train coming, so I've timed that beautifully. If I quickly just put up a map of the old Isle of Wight Railways, instead of using Rail Map Online, I'll put up an old Southern Railways map, because it's a beautiful old map, and it shows just how many lines were dotted around this island. If I just zoom in to the right side of that, you'll see that little branch line coming off there towards the sea. That's the Bembridge branch, and that's what we're going to be walking today. So you see how old this is. This is a proper old gate, isn't it? Oh, I've stung myself already. I've only just started. Ah, I've stung myself again. Mate, I've done a double whammy, and I've deafened you with a gate. But apart from that, it's gone well. Please latch the gate. Okay, I'm not going to go across. But there you go. There's Brading Station. There's a train coming in. Look at that for timing. We're less bothered about Brading Station, although it does have a beautiful signal box still that they've saved, which is great. Managed to get another one coming the other way. Look at this for timing, I've nailed this. Look at that, there you go. Normally I don't get any trains when I'm walking around old railway lines where they join onto current lines, but I've got two there. So I don't know if you saw back there on that sign that said, you know, to lock the gate. There's also a sign on it that says no headphones. Just a bit further down this line, in Sandown, which is the next station from Brading. There was a young lad killed not that long ago actually, because he had headphones on and he was just crossing across. Obviously didn't hear the train coming, which is tragic. So straight away we're on the track bed. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this was all the sea. That up there is Culver Down. You've got the cliffs the other side, which obviously the Isle of Wight's famous for these white cliffs. This big chalk seam that goes through the island, but this was all the sea. They are noisy trains. Old tube stock as well. They love the old tube trains on the Isle of Wight. And Brading Harbour, as it was actually the biggest harbour on the Isle of Wight in the mid-1800s. It was the most active harbour. And then as the railway came, that connected Ryde and that connected Cowes and various other places, down to, you know, Sandown, Shanklin, Ventnor, other seaside places. And so Bembridge wanted a piece of the action and St Helens wanted a piece of the action. So they started something called the Brading Haven, I've just been attacked by a bug, the Brading Haven Reclaimation Scheme and the Reclamation Railway, where they reclaimed all of this land. They built this railway along what was basically the sea wall essentially, to join these villages into the main line at Brading there. It opened in 1882. So round about best part of 20 years after the line from Ryde down to Shanklin, which, you know, went through Brading, was already open. It closed to passengers in 1953 because St Helens, I mean, it's a much bigger place now, same with Brading, but they weren't then. But it would have been an absolutely stunning railway just because of the scenery. I mean, it's amazing when you look at that, because that could go on for miles, couldn't it? You could be in Wiltshire or Derbyshire or anywhere really, but actually that hill there, what you can't see is at the other side of that, that's a sheer drop, that's a cliff. And through there you've got Sandown, Shanklin, holiday resorts. Oh yes, Bembridge Airport as well, you can see a plane coming in. Now in terms of this line, because I'm from the Isle of Wight, I live in the East Midlands now, so a lot of my walks are around the Midlands and stuff, but I'm from here. And so I've done all these walks a bunch of times, but I've not done this one for years. And I actually can't remember really what infrastructure's left. So I'm kind of taking a punt, hoping that actually there are a few bits and bobs. So we'll soon see, won't we? We'll either be well excited or really disappointed together by the end of this video. But you know, we're here now, aren't we? We're committed. So this is quite clearly a track bed now. See back there, it was a bit up and down. We were pretty much following the route of the track bed, but then we had to move because there's someone's garden, and the railway would have gone right through the garden there, and they were actually sat out in the garden, so I didn't think that they'd particularly enjoy me, you know, being true to the track bed at that point and just sort of stomping through the garden while they're getting a suntan. Bit of an embankment, which you would have had to have had, obviously, because this was all reclaimed land, or is all reclaimed land, so it's all still very, very marshy. So when the rains come here, this is you know, drenched, it's soaked, it looks like the sea again basically. Now as I remember it, we could basically follow the track bed all the way towards a place called St Helens, and at that point that was basically where the original line went. So there was a line that went from Braiding Station back there and came basically the route I'm following now, alongside what was the harbour, and there was a jetty and a couple of lines there. Now at that point basically the line ends, and I think it's all private property, or at least it always was. So we'll have to come off the line then, annoyingly, come back on at St Helens Station, which is all still there. It's a private house, but they've kept all the awnings and all that sort of stuff. I remember it as a kid just looking amazing. Now at that point there's been quite a lot of regeneration in terms of work on the river and all that sort of stuff, so whether there's any remains of the old railway bridge across, I don't know until I basically, you know, stick my head over the side. All the reeds and stuff, you can see the water now, you can see the steeple in the distance there, that's Bembridge, that is. So we're going to sort of skirt around it, which I guess you would have had to have done, because again this was all the sea as well. If you see old photos, or rather old maps, because they didn't have cameras then, but old maps of the Isle of Wight going back hundreds of years, shape's dead weird, and I think a lot of people think, well, they didn't have aerial photographs to sort of go off back then, and that's obviously, you know, probably part of it, but at the same time it was a completely different shape. For one, it joined onto the mainland, and for two, I'd be up to me in water right now. Look how cool that tree looks. Now through there, if you can just see through the branches, there's an obelisk up there. That's called Culver Down, that is. Hello. Hi there. How you doing, alright? You alright, mate? That's basically the cliffs, those big white cliffs the other side of that. Now you might have noticed, back at Braiding, that train came in. It's old tube stock, it's old London Underground stock. And when me and my dad did the walk from Shanklin to Ventnor, if you remember that, it was 100th video a few weeks back, there's tube stock there because we saw the train there. Now for some bizarre reason, when they closed most of the Isle of Wight railways in 1966 as part of the beaching cuts, and they got rid of all the steam, they brought in tube trains from the 1920s for some bizarre reason. I've no idea why. They brought in tube trains from the 1920s, and then when I was a kid they got new trains and everyone was dead excited about it, and they were tube trains from the 1930s, right? I love it. We've got new trains, they're like 80 years old, and the ones they've got now, which are new trains that everyone's dead excited about, I'm pretty sure they're from the 1970s. So I don't know why the Isle of Wight doesn't just embrace the fact that it's in a bit of a time warp and play up on it a bit more, and actually go the whole hog and go, do you know what, rather than using tube stock from the 1970s, why don't we make the whole railway here steam? Imagine that. That'd be a license to print money. Come over on the boat, come over on a paddle steamer to the Isle of Wight, go back in time. Mate, that's because they're struggling for tourism now. One, because it's so expensive to get over on the boat, and the other is the fact that it's not really anything as a place. It's beautiful, you've seen the drone footage, but it's not really offering that much. And it's like, if you could be a link back to the past, mate, I mean, I'm not telling the tourist board how to do their job, but I think it'd be a good idea. Another plane coming into land. Talking of flying things, I just saw a couple doing a similar walk, so I said hello. And the lady said, oh, my husband's looking at some eagles. I was like, eagles? And so the lad's just handed me his binoculars. Unfortunately, this camera isn't, it's not got long enough zoom to get them. But there's a dead tree right out on the other side of the marshes, and I looked on the binoculars and you can see eagles nesting in the tree. That was awesome. It's rubbish for you, you've not got to see it. Do you know what I mean? I've just seen Elvis. So still on the trackbed, to a trained eye. Well, I was going to say to a trained eye that's a goose, but that's a goose to most people. This is ballast. You can kind of make out the type of stone that it is. The reason I know that is because, as me and my dad were talking about when we did that last walk we did together, is actually the ballast on the Isle of Wight came from the Isle of Wight, so that's why it's kind of like that yellowy sandy colour, and not the sort of grey colour that you tend to find around the rest of the country. At last, some infrastructure. We've been kind of starved of it, haven't we? I mean, I've got to see an eagle, but you've not even got to see that. But there you go, there's a bridge. So this is, do you know what I mean? If you were in doubt that that's a trackbed, now it's pretty obvious that it is. Now, that there is St Helens Dover. Now, if you see those trees that go round, that is the trackbed. And the station is just there where those taller trees are. Now, I'm pretty sure, now if memory serves me correctly, and hopefully it does, this is where we have to come off the line annoyingly. And we have to walk round, and we can't actually follow the trackbed at that point. Oh, I can almost touch it where I need to be. But this is the trackbed here. And as you can see, I mean, even if that wasn't private, not tonight, Henry. So annoyingly, I'm gonna have to go kind of around the sun to get to the moon. I have to go all the way up to the main road to come all the way back on myself, which is a bit annoying. But I'll do one of those Blue Peter, here's one I made earlier, when I get the other side, so you don't have to do it. Okay, so I've walked round. Now it should become pretty obvious as I come down here. I think this is pavement, isn't it? I hope I'm not walking into someone's house. That this is a railway station. Look at that. Wow. Well, I won't film too much because it's someone's gaff. But you can see there, look. So that is clearly, you'd have been walking onto the platform there. So what I'll do now is I'll just walk round so I can see if I can get another view of the station from a bit further away, because it's someone's house and I'm always really conscious about that, especially when it's a sunny day and they're probably out in the garden. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I wouldn't want someone poking the camera in my house. So this is the trackbed here. Now, I tried to get a better view of the station, but you can't because it's all massively overgrown. So I'll just, send the drone up and get a little bit from a distance. The line went across here. Now this is all modern, annoyingly, but that is exactly where the line went. It did a sharp, went into St Helens Station, sharp curve, and off that way to Bembridge, which we're going to follow in a minute. But actually the lines also came out of St Helens Station and across. So where the taller tree is, that's St Helens Station. Now the line came round here and off, and there's sidings here. Now another couple of sidings shot across and went across there. Now I'm looking for old stonework that looks different from the rest. That's not old, I don't think. I think this has all been rebuilt, unfortunately. Now I didn't expect to see much there, because to be honest, I only knew that the lines were all there in that area because of, side-by-side maps. That's the only reason I knew. None of that had survived into my lifetime, even as being derelict. So I'm back on the trackbed now, following it next to all this reclaimed land, all this marshland. I mean, look at that as a view. I mean, it's just incredible, isn't it? I'm wondering if that's the eagle that these guys would show me on the binoculars, because it's a pretty big bird, isn't it? That might well be an eagle. Look at that, amazing if so. That town there in the distance, that's Braden. So that's where we've walked, about 2.5 miles round in a bit of a horseshoe, and then down we go. Now, as I say, this line opened in 1882 and it was gone to passengers in 1953. But as they did when they built anything, the Victorians, to be fair, it was grand. So the station at Bembridge, nothing remains of that, it's just houses. But it was a beautiful, beautiful building, and unfortunately, there's lots of old photos and stuff. That's one really good thing about the Isle of Wight railways, is you can find, I've got the butterfly going for me, is there's loads of photos, and there's actually quite a few videos as well that people took in the last days of each of the different lines before they closed. Now this one went to goods in 1957, so again a mega early casualty, but even then people managed to get footage of the line, which is great. So that beautiful station at Bembridge, which was quite quirky because it had a single platform and then a tiny little turntable at the end, because here on the Isle of Wight, for people around the UK that don't know so much about the Isle of Wight railways, they were only ever tank engines, they were only ever little diddy engines, and so they had this little turntable at the end. A beautiful, beautiful station. Now behind that was something called the Spit Bank Hotel, which was this huge, grand Victorian hotel, amazing. And when I was a kid, it had been turned into flats, and as councils do, because they have zero foresight of anything, they wanted to demolish it, and we fought to save it. Myself as a kid, my dad, my mum, like family, friends, loads of people from the Isle of Wight, you know, chained themselves to stuff to try and stop them bulldozing it, but they bulldozed it anyway. We had a few wins back then, Ryde Pavilion being one that I spoke about on the previous walk, but we also had a few defeats. Now all that remains of it is the big fountain that was at the front, so we'll see that, and I'll hopefully be able to put up some old photos and be able to compare it for you. Now that's railway, innit? These boundary posts, and here again, apart from that you wouldn't have a clue really that you're on a railway line at this point. It's just a very, very beautiful walk, although there's a lot of midges about, which I'm going to regret later. Now this area I'm walking in, it's called St Helens Dover over there. You've got Bembridge, St Helens Dover, Braden Marshes. Now going back into the late 1800s, this whole area was called Braden, and Braden Haven, which is crazy because Braden's 2.5 miles away, and it's not a big place either, but it was all under that umbrella, under that parish. So you know, earlier on when I was whinging about tourism, I was talking about the cost of the boats. Well, where we are now, between sort of St Helens and Bembridge, we're not that far off the mainland. You can see the mainland, and there was actually a ferry, it's called a train ferry, that went from that wharf that I tried to find some remains of and failed, across to a place called Longston, which I think is basically Hayling Island, which is not far from Portsmouth, just across the water there. I tell you what, with the monopoly the boat companies have got now, we could do with some more companies coming along with train ferries and all sorts. Still stomping along, beautiful views. But actually, apart from that one bridge that we went over and the remains of St Helens Station, and I think maybe a couple of boundary posts, there's basically nothing so far in terms of remains of the railway, which is a bit of a sickener. But what I always find interesting is when you look on old maps, like side-by-side maps and stuff, that there was so much going on previously, and so much stuff where these places were sort of self-sustainable. Now, you know, the Isle of Wight basically brings in most of its food, I guess, and most of its everything from the mainland. And then, to be fair, the mainland imports most of its stuff from foreign countries and whatever. Whereas going back, everything was self-sustainable. Everyone, you know, grew their own whatever and made their own whatever. Now, earlier I sent the drone back over St Helens railway station. Now, if you used to see those quite big sort of ponds, now they were oyster farms. Going back into 1914, on the 1914 map, they show up as oyster farms. Now I'm not sure what they are. They're just a little lake that someone's got outside their house. Another boundary post. Right, we've got to a point of desperation now, so we're counting boundary posts. And a swan. I don't know if that's original Southern Railway, but let's say it is. So we've got a swan, we've got a bridge, we've got an old railway station, and we've got about 3 boundary posts. That's all right. Mate, look at that. That looks railway era, doesn't it? That's an old map job, so I'll see what was going off there. But summit, but geez, it's seen better days in it water-wise, but look at that, what an amazing building. And here's the trackbed, so it's not far off the trackbed, so who knows? I might be clutching, but that could be in some way linked to the railway, or it could be a boatyard building. You don't know, dear. But it is that kind. It looks railway related, doesn't it? It's that era, Victorian era. And there you go. There's the other side of it. I was kind of ducks are loving it. Look, I was kind of hoping there'd be like a big arch, and it could be like, oh mate, that's an engine shed or a goods shed, but I don't know. Old map job. Right, this hasn't gone well. Ow! That was my head on a branch. And the branch lost that battle, so I'll take that as a bit of a victory. So the track bed's gone. That's a problem. Because actually there's so much water, I'm basically gonna have to walk about half a mile back. Oh, stitch. Never mind, it is what it is. So I'm gonna have to basically double back on myself and then get onto the road. So I'm back on the road now. Track bed is down through those edges, but obviously we couldn't get through them, which is a bit annoying. I'm out of breath now from clambering. But there you go, look at that, beautiful. And loads of houseboats. My sister always wanted a houseboat here. I'm pretty sure she nearly bought one, but it all fell through. But it does seem like a pretty cool life, I've got to say. I'll say that, but everything's cooler when the sun's out, innit, if we're honest. And I guess living on a houseboat is no different. I imagine when it's tipping it down and blowing a gale, it's less pleasurable. So let me put a picture up now of Bembridge railway station, because that is it. Now, that is it. That's the footprint. Now, unfortunately, I've had to come round. I've come down a jitty. The line came in here. Now, these buildings here are sat on the exact footprint. That's where this turntable was, just here. So let me just come around the side here. There's your station building. There's your single platform, and here is your turntable. There, like that. And in fact, here we go. There's a couple of remnants. See those gates there, mate? It's not a lot to be left, is it? But it's something. And as I spoke about earlier, the fountain that we saved, that's all we managed to save. That was the Spit Bank Hotel. It's an incredible Victorian structure. That is basically a Poundland version of it. But the fountain remains. And yeah, Bembridge railway station. That's it. Public toilet. So that's me. I'm in Bembridge now. For some reason the wind's gone mad. Not a hell of a lot in terms of railway remains, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. It's a beautiful sunny day. Now I'm going to get myself off and find a nice cold beer and a nice garden to sit in. And I'll see you next time.